So my name's Tom Brass. I'm with Choose Movement Consulting, and each week at our weekly meetings for Choose Movement, we somebody presents a tip. So we've gathered those up and kind of chosen the best. So we'll start with a little. Our giants are female. I wanted to highlight Edith Windsor, who you may have, if you follow politics. She was the primary plaintiff in the United States versus Windsor, but she was also a engineer or programmer actually at IBM. She was actually known for her top-notch debugging skills, which kind of applies to this presentation because a lot of these things are helping with debugging. So, again, my name is Tom Brass. I've been programming since 1995, most of that time as a consultant. So I have a CLA and CLD. A lot of our work is with medical devices. I've also done a little bit of CREO and some motion control. And then so a little bit about CMC. Just a shout out that we do have a demonstration in the hardware room. So if you get a chance, go over there and check that out. And we're, as a company, focusing a lot on medical device because we're up in Minnesota, a lot of medical device companies there. We follow the Choose Movement philosophy, so if you ever get a chance to take a look at that, it's kind of a little different than what you often see with companies. It's a little more focused on the customer and creating good relationships. So let's jump into all these tips and tricks. So I'm going to start with a few non-LabVIEW tips. And you also see on each of these, I highlight who actually in the company presented it. So just mainly to show that there's a lot of different people who've contributed. So I'll start with clipboard history. So if you use the Alt or the Windows key and V, you'll actually pop up a history that you can use for copying and pasting. So if you had, say you have wherever you need to post or copy into, you can just basically click things like, oh, it's totally obvious, Tom. Or, does that not do it? There we go. Eric is always right. That's always a thing that comes up often in our meetings. So anyway, so very convenient if you have lots of different things you want to copy and paste, rather than having to always go back and copy and then the normal copy and paste. This way you can copy a number of things, and then I often do that for if I have pasting things where I just want to change one thing, like you might have like sensor 1, sensor 2, sensor 3, and so okay, you just copy sensor, paste that, hit 1, 2, and 3. But then oftentimes if it's like a 2D array, then it's want to have one thing that's like a little sensor, and then I'll say station 1, station 2, station 3. This way I can kind of just jump back and forth very quickly. Another thing to speed things up is if you have to be searching your laptop for things, the normal Windows can take a while. But there's a program called Everything that you can download. And once you've ran this the first time, it kind of goes through your computer and indexes everything. So then if you need to, say, search for GDevCon, if I can type, you can see how quickly it brings up what you're looking for. So that's actually, especially if you're trying to find something or you don't remember where you stored it, you can very quickly get to it. And finally, this is if you have to work with databases. I oftentimes use the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. And one annoying thing I always had is if you go into a table and you just want to do some simple editing. No, where's my tables? So let's say I have a test table here. When you right click, you have your select top 100 or 1,000 views and edit top 200 views is like the default. And I oftentimes find that 200 is just not quite enough. And since this edit's very convenient, I wanted to change that. So if you go into Tools, Options, and down to the SQL Object Explorer, if I get there, you find you can actually change those. So if you want to do 1,000 instead for the edit, now you right click, now you can edit a whole bunch more. So just a little convenient, for if you're, hopefully you're not having to edit tables that way too often, but if you do, they can be helpful for, you just have that one line you're trying to find and it's line number 201. But yeah, moving on. Some LabVIEW tips. I don't have a mouse here, so I can demonstrate the first one. But we have your case statement, say, and you have a lot of cases. In LabVIEW earlier versions like 2020, you can do the control and then use your scroll bar or your scroll on your mouse to cycle through different cases, and that will work in whichever case you're in. So if you have nested cases, your mouse is hovering over the inner case, it'll cycle through that one. Move out to outer case, it'll cycle through that one. If you're using later versions like LabVIEW 2024, it's shift control and then the scroll. But another thing is we'll open up LabVIEW. I'll do this in 2020. So give it a second to load up. If you ever use the quick drop, there's a ton of shortcuts out there that a lot of different ones that are handy. One in particular that Eric showed that I did not know is should have had this open already. Sorry about that. Here's my presentation here. If you ever, have the unfortunate thing of opening up code and finding that your origin point is somewhere in the middle of your code, and that annoys me, so I like to get rid of that. So if you do quick drop and then Control O, that will normally, you should have this open first. Apparently it's populating in the list. In any case, once you hit Control O, it will pop the origin back, or your screen back to the origin point of 0, 0. So there it goes. And that works both on the front panel and the block diagram. So, but yeah, just in general, there's a lot of simple shortcuts you can use that like, for example, another one I use is the Control R, which is you select a VI, hit Control R, it will remove that VI or the sub VI from your block diagram and rewire things for you. So that's always nice to, if you want to get rid of something, it's sort of the opposite of the insert. But and then one other simple thing is, this is something I just discovered not too long ago. So if you have a 2D array and you need to get the number of rows and number of columns, in the past I'd have to get the size, and then it's a 2D array for the size. You have to index that. But there's actually in the matrix, there is a matrix size that will give you the rows and the columns. So nice little function there that you can use. That's just cleans your code up just a little bit. All right, moving on. I'm zipping through these because I have a lot of them. Another one that we, Adam just, one of our engineers demonstrated is internal DAC channels. So that's, so normally, oh, where'd it go? Oh, it's just taking a while to load up. Here we go. Normally when you have your list of channels on your DAC instrument, you have your various analog inputs or maybe some outputs depending on what you're doing. In this case, this is particularly for inputs. If you right click and do some filtering, there's a checkbox here for internal channels. So if you enable that, then you've got a bunch more channels. So there's some things like, say, if you wanted to compare a ground with a sense wire, some of these are built in, so you don't have to do additional wiring to get to those. They're available for you, so that can save you from having to take up extra channels just to wire up. If you want to compare, say, a ground, a couple of grounds, to make sure you have good grounding. So I encourage you to check that out and see if it may help you out in some situations. Where we at? Oh yes, the next would be sorting the 2D array. Not too long ago, they added a sort for 2D arrays, and I found that's rather slow. And another downside to that is that if you're sorting an 2D array of strings, any number columns you have, it's going to sort it like a string, which means, for example, so you have, a table that you're using, and you have one of the columns is some numbers. If you use the standard sort and you want to sort on index 2 here, you will get, the first one is 1213 and then 214 and 3.2. It's probably not what you actually want. But if you do a different technique, you get the sorting that you want, and how it's actually just a little bit of cleverness. You can use the 1D sort to actually make that happen. So how that works is basically when the 1D sort, you can sort an array of clusters, and the first item in your cluster is what it'll sort on. So you can grab, say, a couple different channels or a couple of columns, and one of those, if you want it to be a number, you just convert it into a number, and then just take the whole rest of the row as your third element. And then after you sort it, just pull that third element back out, and it's sorted. And the 1D sort is a lot faster too, so that is, if you're having to, this is particularly nice if you have like a user interface and you want to be able to sort on, have the operator be able to sort on columns to get through, pull a line of data that they need. it's a lot faster. So better user experience. Next, I'll talk about reentrant clones. So if you use a lot of clones and you're running your code, you open up your VI of that clone or the original VI, you're not going to see what's actually running because the clones are the actual code running, and it makes it a lot harder to debug. But there's a simple way to get to those clones. So if you, so we have 3 clones here, they're just counting at different times. Click on the first one. Actually, since I'm clicking on the code in the VI, it brings up the first clone. That's not the clone I want to look at. Say I want to look at the second one. Go to Browse Relationships, Reentrant Items, and then there's all your clones. So you can select a different clone and see how that's running. So then you can go in there and probe inside that and see what's going on. So very helpful if you're debugging a bunch of clones. It's particularly if your framework relies on reentrant clones to run a bunch of different if you're spawn a bunch of different actions or whatnot. So, and got 2 more things to go through, so I'm doing pretty decent on time. Regular expressions is a way to get data out of strings. So, example I'm going to show is actually we had a client with they gave us a file for a memory map of their product, of the chip on their product, and we didn't want to force them to change their file format just so we can read it easier. So by using regular expressions, it's a set of special characters that you can use to search your string. You can pull out a bunch of data in a very simple way. So I'm just going to pull that up. I just call it a 1, 2, 3. Is that what I called it? No. Okay, what did I call it? I use X, Y, Z. Yeah. So let me pull up the file so you can see what the file itself looks like. So this is just very short. The actual file was like thousands of lines long, and there have been. We could have asked them to resort it to be a comma delimited file, but especially when they have multiple products and you don't want them just ask the customer, oh, you got to change this file just so it makes it easier for me to read. But by using regular expressions, we can pull this out pretty quickly. So in this example, grabbing every set of parentheses in there is a different token. And so you might say, okay, the first set is the beginning of the line 0 through 9, A through F, so because that's a hex value. And then have it equal, and then add some more characters to say, okay, grab the next thing that you see in the quotations and pull that out. And then finally, I'm just curious as to what's at the end of the line because it's comments, so I pull that out. So very simple code there to pull all that data out. So you're not going through a series of find this point and then grab the data after that and then find another value, key value, pull value before that. And that's how I used to do it. It was very messy. So there's a lot of special characters and a lot. You get very complex things. And so we actually had a presentation at our local user group where a gentleman by the name of Bruce Fair went through in lots of detail. So if you ever want to get some really serious diving into that subject, that's a good presentation to look at. And then finally, I think I have just enough time to go over resizing screens. So if you have a, normally applications you're used to you open it up in whatever size screen you have, and it will size itself appropriately. Like for Excel, you just get to see more rows and columns if you have a bigger monitor. But that is not built into LabVIEW. Well, it's not an automatic thing in LabVIEW. So I have a series of things here to demonstrate. Pull this up. So we'll start with a simple one here, which all I did for this is go on the properties, Windows, not appearance, it's the Windows size, that's what it is. You just check scale all objects on the front panel. Well, you're done, right? So then when you run this, you can start resizing, and it's not too bad. Get ready to shrink down. Okay, that doesn't look great. Okay, that's not looking so good. But we'll just put it back how it was. Oh, wait. So if you ever played with that, you'll probably experience a similar thing. Since I'm getting low on time, I'm going to jump ahead a bit to a little more advanced one. So this, I basically took the screen and split it up with splitters. So then you can control each little section. So I also, so I don't get things quite so ugly, I limited how far you can squeeze it down. But in any case, like this buttons, I just leave it at the bottom. I don't try resizing the space between the buttons because it will work fine at various sizes. But I make sure it sticks to the bottom. The status, on the other hand, I make sure that is resizes to that section. And so good if you were strategic about your how you use splitters, you can get a nice looking user interface that works the way you want. However, we've also had a situation where customer asked, we get some code that they had, and like, could you make this resizable? And it's like, okay, trying to go into their complex user interface and stick in splitters wasn't super practical. So instead, I do it programmatically, and by doing that, so I use it on the event structure or panel size. And one key little thing here is if you wait until the old bounds and new bounds are the same, if you're moving the size, LabVIEW will try to continually update that, which is very clunky actually. So if you just say wait until the old and the new are equal, that's when basically you've let go of the mouse. And then you can do all your resizing then. So it'll basically, it won't look like it's resizing, but you'll let go and then everything will snap into the size you want. And then I just use the left and right bounds and top and bottom bounds and do some math to figure out what I want to move. So in some cases, like those buttons, it's like all I do is move the top position. So I don't bother trying to resize them or move left, right, because they're left, right, they're fine. But and my time is up. So, but yeah, so just a bit of math and you can get your resizing. So I'll post all this in the Discord along with these examples. And I encourage, if any of you have tips and tricks that you would like, you want to share with the community, feel free to post a comment on my Discord channel there, and kind of get even more tips and tricks. So that's it. So, any quick questions, I guess, since my time is technically up, but.
Run your example you have right there.
Oh, this example here?
Let's see it in action.
Sure. So I can size, squeeze it down. My graphs get a little wonky if I get it really tight and not much of a status, but also if I then put it all the way back, it goes back to how, still looking nice when, so it's, and when the size is, I mean, if you're dealing with like a small laptop up to a big monitor, it works. If you had to try to display it on like a phone or something, they might, depending on what your screen is, there might not be much you can do if you're depending on what you're trying to display. So that's, yes, Norm.
I was going to say just an addendum to the search everything. I kind of live and breathe and die. I have no more hierarchy on my hard drive. It's one big mess. But the turning on of the search paths is a non-default option. And so if I'm ever looking for like LabVIEW examples, I just type LabV and XV and .vi in the version, and it allows you to include the search path as your criteria. And it's such a huge game changer for that search everything tool that you mentioned up front. So just wanted to add that on for people interested.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So any other comments or questions? So. All right.